A torrid, record-breaking week of scoring to start a brand new PGA Tour season at the Century last week. Colin Morikawa goes 32 under. He's never had a better week in his life as a professional. And my man lost by 3 because Hideki Matsuyama at 35 under has established a new PGA Tour scoring record in relation to par. They went bonkers last week at the Plantation Course at Kapalua. We'll see what this week's event, the Sony Open in Hawaii at Waialae Country Club, has in store for the field, including Hideki, who steamrolls into Honolulu. As we check in with the PGATour.com's Rob Bolton, looking resplendent as ever there, big fella, to start the new season. What's happening?
Hey, man. I know that you really wanted to start the year to talk about our Mets-Cubs bet, given what's happened on the hot stove for the Mets. My Cubs connection here notwithstanding, I had to bring some of the holiday shirt out, the Hawaiian shirt rather, out for this week's Sony Open in Hawaii. You know, how often am I going to get a chance to wear one of these? And, of course, in front of your face, which is really all that matters at this moment. We'll get to the bet later. I'm not sure I'm looking forward to it this year because of what's happening. But in the meantime, yes, it is good to see you. We'll table the rest of it for another time.
Sounds good. The Mets are not done spending yet,
oh my
by
gosh.
the way. Uncle
Stop
Steve is making it rain. Making it rain. Okay, so I mentioned Hideki's victory last week. He's in the field looking to accomplish something that only Justin Thomas and Ernie Els have, Rob, and that's win the first 2 Hawaii events in back-to-back weeks. He's only 9-1. Frankly, I think that's fantastic value for Matsuyama, who obviously tops the power rankings. There may not be an easier slot someone at number 1 in the power rankings all season long.
Yeah, it's funny when as you're talking about Matsuyama, what he did last week. I'm thinking the last person who beat him, and it's not like Matsuyama's on a run right now, but obviously has won at Waialae before in 2022. Is coming off that record performance at Kapalua. He had an incredible 2024. It's weird to say this, but he had only 2 wins. But if you look at the scope of his record, it's really phenomenal. It was, I mean, the 2020 year, for all that was wrong in the world at that time, it was really his best year. And 2024 came close. It wasn't as personally, effective potentially in that regard, but it was still probably his second best year inside the ropes as a golfer. He finished T2 at the Dunlop Phoenix a couple of months ago, and the only person who beat him in that event was Max McGreevy, the Korn Ferry Tour graduate who's in this week's field. So I'm oddly curious how McGreevy's going to play in a vacuum. Have him very high in my full membership fantasy ranking for 2025, and he's so ready to get back on the PGA Tour. Had a T15 Black Desert, just on a sponsor exemption in the fall, and he's in this week's field. But so is Matsuyama. So in a sense, even though we don't do these things as fans, I do. It's McGreevy Matsuyama this week for me. These two get back into the same field after Matsuyama last week, and McGreevy's on this roll. So even though McGreevy isn't in my power rankings and Matsuyama's number 1, there is this other dynamic that is out there. But Matsuyama gets all the love for all the reasons you mentioned, for all the reasons that are very obvious. And at 9-1, holy cow, multiply the units.
So Hideki and I think a little more than half the field of 59 is making the island hop over to Oahu for this week's event, including Corey Connors, who just finished tied for 5th last week. He's had 4 top 12 finishes at Waialae Country Club through the years. Here's what encouraged me, and we saw a lot of Corey in our PGA Tour live coverage, Rob. He putted beautifully, and that's been the bugaboo. He's an elite ball striker, one of the best in the business, but he was better than anyone converting from inside 10 feet. He holed more feet of putts last week. If that trend continues on this golf course, Connors is one to watch. He's at plus 1,400, number 2 in the power rankings.
And an easy number 2. Also, after Matsuyama at number 1. Yeah, 35 of the 59 are from Kapalua are at Waialae this week. It would have been 37. Christian Bezuidenhout and Davis Riley withdrew ahead of the tournament. They would have been there this week. We'll see more of them later, I'm sure. Connors, it would be disrespectful, and it would come across as mean-spirited if all I wrote was like he's exactly the guy you want in a scramble from tee to green, but let somebody else putt. Well, not last week. Like, he did it all. Like, he brought the whole bag and still didn't really threaten for the victory. That's what happened. But Connors wasn't really much of a top 10 machine last year as he was a top 15, top 20. But last week, top 10, really strong performance. And yeah, the experience, 4 top 12 finishes, something like that at Wailea. Yeah, put it all together. Number 2, he's in the fantasy lineup. And again, maybe a partial unit depending on the odds for what you're looking at in that instance. He's also going to come a little bit cheaper in DFS, where potentially some of the stalwarts in that format would be concerned about the putting, but not last week. It was a video game on the greens.
I usually like to bounce around the power rankings, but I thought the top 4 were really strong this week and kind of automatic, right? Hideki, Corey Connors, Russell Henley is third, 6 top 20 finishes at Wailea Country Club, 65.9 scoring average in his last 16 rounds there. A victory as well for Henley and his first ever start on the PGA Tour. In fact, 12 years ago. Hard to believe it's been that long. And you're getting 20-1 healthy value for Russell Henley this week.
Yeah, actually, so I understand that perspective of an automatic slot. That's more of a respect to his record at Wailea and more of a longer trajectory of his overall form. He doesn't present as strong as Matsuyama and Connors, of course. I mean, he's close, but on this course specifically, when we're thinking about who's played really well, certainly he broke through in 13. He's the only first-time winner on the course in the FedEx Cup era. And in his first start, as you mentioned, he already had won as an amateur on the Corn Ferry Tour prior to that. So like he's almost an anomaly with that trend that no one wins in their first appearance or as a first time winner on the PGA Tour. And then McNeely at 4. Like, I'm just so excited about the possibilities this year. I saw the segment that PGA Tour Entertainment had released about who wasn't at East Lake in 24 that the golfers who were at East Lake expect to be at East Lake. And McNeely was mentioned, and I'm like, of course he'll be there. Of course he'll be there. He is so ready also to elevate the win at the RSM. And so it's kind of funny how Henley and McNeely are 3-4 there respectively in the power rankings for Sony, because they're at different times of their career, but right up against each other in terms of impact. And obviously we love that in all the spaces that we're talking about today.
And McNeely is 25-1, by the way, number 4 in the power rankings this week. Keegan Bradley, 28-1. He came within a whisker of winning here a year ago. He's got a lot on his plate this year as the U.S. Ryder Cup captain. May even play his way onto the team. Who knows? Remember, he was set to be an assistant captain for the President's Cup last year. Made his way onto that team, so had to defer from his assistant captaincy duties. Tied for 15th, fairly sharp to start the new year last week at Kapalua for your boy Keegs.
Did you mention Keegan Bradley back on the wall over there? Yeah, my guardian angel or something along those lines. Love the guy. Last week was terrific. Last year at Wailea was terrific. He birdied the last hole in regulation to get into the 3-way playoff. Obviously, Grayson Murray also birdied with that clutch 80-yard approach and 31-inch birdie conversion, and then obviously won it in the playoff. It's funny, the full membership fantasy ranking that I mentioned earlier, he's lower than he should be in a year when he's not the Ryder Cup captain. Playing both tournaments in the opening drive in Hawaii. Expect a very good week this week. Number 9 in the power rankings, obviously, is mad respect. For me, it's when it gets closer every month that goes by, how much of his focus, how much is he going to be stretching himself for that gig? Doesn't have to this week. So respect remains high, but overall, he may be the type of guy who I do not expect to see at East Lake, despite the fact that I wrote no one may want to play more for the Ryder Cup captain than a Ryder Cup captain himself. So it's a super intriguing year for him. As a fan of his, I'm super intrigued to see how it all plays out. But I'm also just respectful of what the day job requires of me. And it's a week-to-week process. This week, all in. For now. We'll take the next time he plays next time.
So we've got Luke Clanton in the field here this week. I get excited whenever this kid tees it up. He's something special. I mean, at some point, he's going to be a full-fledged member of the PGA Tour. For now, he remains the world's top-ranked amateur. He's in on the sponsor exemption, but, you can almost pencil this kid in for a top 10. It seems like he just churns them out, including a runner-up at the RSM in the fall.
And he's just below Max McGreevy in the official world golf ranking as an amateur. And I've had questions already. Do you think Clanton will make the Ryder Cup team this year? It's that's what people are thinking, at least. How do you rule it out, right? He's done everything else so quickly, so fast, and so well. Yeah, and he's in the field, as you mentioned, on the sponsor exemption. Had the T2 at the RSM to wrap up the fall. But now if he had a top 10 this week, even though he's an amateur, the new provision for amateurs, for the top 10 rather, is that amateurs are now looped into that provision. So should he have a top 10 this week, he would get an automatic top 10 exemption into the American Express next week, unless he has class or something he has to attend. We'll see. Or he's already in that field on a sponsor exemption, but that would override with the top 10. And there's no open qualifier next week. So it's one of those, I think, 2 events on the West Coast swing that doesn't have an open qualifier. I might be the only one remaining now that I'm thinking about it out loud here, where he would get in without an open qualifier via the top 10. That's what's happening this year, and that's one of the sort of the subtext to what's happening with Clanton this year. But yeah, I really wanted to rank him higher, Swanee. It's just, man, he's still an amateur, and this course is more difficult than maybe the scores will define it from a mainstream casual fan perspective. It's not hard, but experience is required, especially when the wind blows, and it's going to blow this week. If he finishes, let's say, top 25, it'll be an incredible week, despite his talent, because of the factors in play and the attributes that he doesn't yet bring on the course.
Last week marked the launch of the PGA Tour Fantasy Golf game presented by PGA Tour Superstore. And if you put Hideki Matsuyama as your captain, good on you, because 35 under certainly would have helped the roster. Clearly, he would be a fine selection this week as the captain of your fantasy team as well. Give me another player or two that gamers might want to round out their roster with here at the Sony, Rob.
Yeah, maybe you heard me. Hideki was not my captain. He is this week.
Yeah.
I mean, the guys we've talked about, and honestly, my lineup, as we're speaking midday on a Wednesday here, consists of the top 6 in my power rankings. Connors is in there. Henley is in there. McNeely. They're all in my starting lineup for now, top 4. And right now I have Tom Kim and Austin Eckroat also 5 and 6 in the power rankings. I have Tom Kim specifically slotted as my number 1 bench player. And the new version of the game has an auto swap feature. It's automatic, auto swap. That's what that means. And so if, let's say, Matsuyama withdraws before the first round, which he has been known to do over time, we're very aware of that. We have to be careful of that. I wouldn't mind Tom Kim slipping into that spot in the opening round. So it'd sort of a replacement cost value in golf in a sense, and it automatically swaps in there for. So you're not stuck with a 0 in the first round if you didn't get up early enough or something like that. Weren't paying attention, couldn't pay attention early on a Thursday morning, even though this tournament starts out in Hawaii, so it's easier for us on the mainland. But it's going to be a feature we can watch this year. But yeah, straight chalk. Second tournament of segment 1 in the game, and there's only 10. Be aggressive, play all the regular guys. A lot of these guys aren't going to be burning 3 starts for segment 1 anyway. You probably will for Matsuyama, but this is the week where you get him in there, obviously, with the way he's playing and everything we mentioned earlier.
Week 2 with the PGA Tour Fantasy Golf League presented by PGA Tour Superstore. Go to X at Rob Bolton Golf for more information on that, and read all of Rob's thorough and fantastic content on the website as well. Good to see a big fella looking sharp, and looking forward to the next time we hook up here early in the year.
Very kind of you to say that, given what I'm wearing. Happy New Year, pal.